Hello again. After a few months of laziness and nothingness, here I am back on YouTube. So I had a massive downtime with my personal photography simply because I had some issues with my M9. So I've had to let it go, and I've had a couple of new cameras since then. Well, 3 actually, including my latest rangefinder. So I bought a Ricoh GR2, which I really enjoyed shooting with, but after about 3 months of using that, it still kind of felt like an extension of my iPhone, because I was not shooting through a viewfinder, I was shooting through the screen. And it was a fantastic camera because it fits my pocket, and you pull it out in the massive crowd, nobody really gives a crap about you shooting it. So it was really convenient, and it gave me a lot of confidence to shoot street photography, but it wasn't really fulfilling. I then moved on to changing my work camera onto a new machine. I bought an EOS R and I was shooting with that for a while, but it didn't feel quite right in terms of carrying on an everyday basis. It didn't give me the joy that the Leica M9 gave me. So me and my girlfriend decided to travel to Frankfurt. Long story short, I ended up going to one of the oldest Leica stores in the world, which is based within the Frankfurt city. After looking around for a few minutes, what do you know? There was this perfect Leica M8 sitting in the second-hand camera section. It's a perfect example of a well looked after Leica M8, and even though I was aware of what parts can go wrong in these cameras, apparently the shutters are known to fail, but I decided to go ahead anyway, because after going through a couple of other cameras, I knew what I really wanted was a very traditional style rangefinder. So as most of you would know, Leica M8 is obviously a step back from the Leica M9. I really love this camera because it shares the characteristics that I really liked about the Leica M9. So it's got the true rangefinder screen, so I'm generally focusing with my right eye and my left eye open, and it's got the frame lines there, so when a subject is walking into your frame, you can check it with your left eye. So obviously you've got a really wide field of view, and then once the subject walks in, you close your left eye, you focus, you can toggle the shutter speed dial with your right finger, you're focusing with your index finger, and you shoot. I shoot with the camera just about anything, but I mainly like to focus on my travel photography and also my daily street photography. So this camera gets a bit of admirable looks. Being here in London, there are lots of people who will stop you for a chat to talk about the camera and talk about photography, and you're just making friends on the street, and it's always a good conversation if you bump into a fellow photographer or an enthusiast in cameras, and you just end up talking for about 30 minutes. So that's always a great thing to share the culture as well. And obviously this camera gives you some beautiful images. So it's got that Leica 3D pop combined with this lens. It's got the beautiful black and whites that I personally think any other camera cannot beat, and that's strictly my personal opinion. I got myself a 35mm f2 Ultron from my friend, who generously sold it to me at a very good price so I can start shooting with it, and this is based on an old Leica Zoomicron 35mm f2 lens. It's a nice tiny compact lens with a really beautiful bokeh if you shoot it wide open. I generally like to shoot it around 5.6 aperture, and I just set the camera fixed on an ISO 640 because I like a little bit of grain as well. This whole thing is a joy to carry around. I just bought an old Leica leather strap from eBay. I think this is from one of the old Leica 3Fs, and the leather case to go with it, and this is pretty much my setup. 46mm full frame equivalent, which is more like a Henri Cartier-Bresson traditional style focal length, but that's what I learned photography on, a 50mm. So the other day, me and my girlfriend decided to go for a walk around the block. We live near Notting Hill, and due to the virus issues that's going around at the moment, London hasn't been locked down fully, but the government has recommended most people to stay home, self-isolate. So we went for a fresh air, and I decided to take my Leica with me, shoot a few snaps while I'm on the streets. I hope this video will give you some help to decide whether you want to get a Leica M8 in 2020. I hope you enjoy.